been circling the house. He's circled about 10 times already. There's also a drone to the west, like a tiny dot. You can't see. There's actually another helicopter that's a little black helicopter that's running around with that one. And I'm gonna see if I could catch the drone. Very tiny little dot. But because of the light of the sun, let's see, reference, the tree. Okay, so let's see. We should be somewhere in there. A little drone. It's probably a massive drone. And that drone's been over there, going back and forth in the west coast, but basically within the same line of this yard in a linear line, and watching over here since early this morning. That drone has been up all day. All day. Wow. Wow, I didn't see that until I actually, until I actually turned the camera on. Now I see this ray of light. Hallelujah. That's awesome. Okay. Let's get the birds. I can catch them. There they are. Hi guys. A little blurry. I know, it's just there. There you go. But let's see here. Now they've already circled right around here 7 times. They're going clockwise. But there's another black, tinier helicopter. I figure it's tinier because it is probably smaller and it's probably following at a distance. I'm not really good at finding where that guy is. Maybe we'll catch him as he clips over. There he is. Yeah, because he's right up over the house here. Just in a continuous pattern. If I can find him. Up over the house. Isn't that interesting? But for some reason, they seem to have been taking a fancy and watching what's going on over this house now. Of course, they are aware, I'm sure, of my sister's murder last year during the season of the witch. It was right after the Feast of Tabernacles. So yes, November 20th. Yeah, I can't even. There's another one. I don't know if you can see it. There it is. That's another helicopter. Okay, I don't even know why they're putting all this effort into this, but they are. And I did try to get the police to open a murder investigation of my sister. I sure did. But they told me to go to San Diego Police Department, and I said, well, they're the ones that lied on their paperwork and said that my sister died of a natural death, and they know she didn't. And there's other problems that are going on with them, with my current situation that I'm involved in, and I just don't trust them to be able to even inspect themselves for the fraudulent lie that they said when they said that my sister, so I can catch this other one. I'm not good at aiming. That my sister died of natural causes, and she didn't, but she did die coincidentally 2 years after my mother. And there are people that want and have told me they want us out. They don't want us living here. And so when they murdered my sister, they put a situation in that caused a change in the trust. And because there were some greedy family members that were not willing to do right by me and my sister, they actually assisted in her demise. And that too was covered up. But, it wasn't really covered up because there's people that know the truth. And I am only praying that these people that do know, these people that think that they can just turn away and not say anything. And I'm going to tell you, all these people, the blood of my sister and the murder of my sister is on their hands. And the plots that they have been doing against me and this family and even Mr. Tillery is wicked. And there's so many people that know it's happening and they're just being quiet. Now they're either in cahoots with it or they're afraid of opening their mouths. But still, even the blood of my family and the martyred victims that have died because of the corruption that's being done is on their hands. It's all on their hands. I had an argument with the property manager, and it was my sister was still alive at the time. And I told him then, I said, if something happens to me, if I show up dead and murdered, I want everybody investigated. I want the property manager investigated, the trust, everybody involved in the trust investigated, and I want people investigated involved in Tillery's court situation investigated. Because, as I told Kevin, it's all connected. And the persecutions and the stress that this family and I have had to live through and endure, you wouldn't believe, because the crimes that are being done, I can't find them now, the crimes that are being done are actually being staged by people in power that have determined that they don't want us to enjoy what our family has put aside for us, what our family, or my father, has put aside. So I would just like to just keep this on record, even though, hey, who knows? We're gonna see. But this guy here, I don't know. He's got to be somewhere. Had to get some FCC permission to be up there, whatever federal guidelines are there. I was like, what's he circling for, and what's his point? Except what? To spy in the sky, to harass, to do what exactly? What is his function? And if this is being sponsored by taxpayers, this is crazy. This has been going on for quite some time. He's been circling around for at least 30 minutes before I even got my phone out to start even shooting. He must have circled this place at least 10 times in that amount of time. And there's the drone still, I don't know if you can see it, it's still up there between the tree and that wire line. It's about an inch above maybe the top of that little tree. You'll see the birds fly past it. There you go. And that drone also has been on duty all day. All day. All day. And it's not the first time that the drones have been over here. There was one day I came out here and I felt wind over my head. That's how close this drone came. And when I went to go get my phone to capture it, it moved so fast away to the west like it is now and continued from a distance. But yeah, just circling the house here, you know. They were supposed to have done an autopsy on my sister, and I was told that that autopsy was going to be done and finished on January 10th. On January 10th, I was called and told it's going to be a couple of days delay. We're sorry, but they'll get to it. And then 2 days after that, when I'm at the court thinking about getting protective orders against my nephew because they threatened me, I get a call saying we are not going to do the autopsy now. Your sister's body has decomposed and we can't do this. And I was like, okay, they lied and they postponed and they literally are hiding the murder of my sister. And there's too many people that lived in her complex too that know the truth. I personally went to see my sister on the day of her death, and her body was not laying in a position of a natural death at all. There was no room for her on her floor. She was laid out like she was laid out by a gurney, just dropped straight, body at attention, face turned away from the door, lips cobalt blue. I said, this is not natural, this is not normal. And she is also too young to have died. She literally died 2 years after my mom's death. There's a lot of stuff going on here. As a matter of fact, a lot of stuff that started after Dad died, after Troy Washington died. There's a lot of things that started, folks that were exploiting the situation. And of course, Dad's initial will never, ever, ever manifested, ever. So, you know, this definitely wasn't the way Dad had left instructions for everything to be done. He had set it up so that, you know, his daughters would be taken care of. He worked hard. He earned everything, and he did it right and legal. But there's too many predators. And when Dad died and left us biblical orphans, the vultures all came in. And sometimes those people can be in your life your whole life and see an opportunity and seize it. And that was also a situation that occurred after my dad died. So again, his will never manifested. There was talk of foul play with even Dad's death. I know there was foul play with Mom's death because she tried to come home before she lost her ability to talk, but one of her nephews refused to let her, and she said, he won't let me come back. And I'm like, well, Mom, you're the one that, you own the house. That's your grandson. You need to tell him, get out of your room. Well, she said, no, I'll just go back to Stephen. And that was the last time she was able to speak, and they hurried up and got rid of her so they could finish their plans of getting the land. And I will say getting land because while she was with this man, he got into her head and caused her to sell at least three properties that were keeping and supporting the family. And that was reported to the Adult Protective Services for senior citizen abuse, but the city of San Diego went to her and asked her, are you being abused? And she said, no. And of course, they shut the case. You don't go to the person. It's like the police calling the police. The police committed a crime on me. Well, call the police, but they did it. You don't go to the person, the victim, and ask the victim, hey, what's going on here? They treated my mother just like a puppet. And even before the man died, he specifically told me that my mother was like putty in his hands and would do anything he asked. She was like a child, he said. And that was at the hospital before she died. So it's sad, but every time I would go and I would tell my son, who was a trustee, hey, we're having a problem here. Hey, these managers, you shouldn't have them. They're charging too much. For example, right here, this faucet right here, my son broke it. We were trying to get the lawn taken care of. That right now, Google's got a picture of the way the lawn was the year that we were trying to get it done. And that's a lie because it's not current. And so that broke. The management charged almost $400 to fix it. Now, I myself fixed that very same faucet in the front yard, and I think it cost me less than $20. I brazed it, I put it back on, I turned off the water, everything. But the management for here charged us almost $400. And when I told my son, look, son, you cannot take the people and keep the people hired that are doing these things because they're after the land. They're not after taking care of the property. So bad at catching this helicopter guy when he comes over the house. They're not after taking care of the property, maintaining the property. He's a property broker. He's a Century 21 guy. He's interested in the land. And he actually kissed my mother's picture when he first got a chance to walk in here, and was just so happy he got the contract. And it's like 10 months after that, I was getting some words coming through vicariously through Life Christian Center, and I knew what they were saying. They're like, hey, warning's up. They want the land. I was even being told then, why don't you take the money, the $30,000, and go? You're not safe, because it was like 2 years ago. Yeah, I think it was on Feast of Passover that I was physically attacked, and at a local restaurant, and the property managers, the manager told me, oh, we're really worried about you, and it's not worth dying for. Why don't you just take the money and move? Now, my sister was alive at that time, and she said, take the $30,000. I think this is interesting, because the $30,000 offer was not put on the plate until after my sister's murder, and that offer was given to me after she was buried. So this was December 28th, the very day that I was also threatened by my son and my nephew, being told, well, basically he straight up said literally, now you better kiss our ass or else. And I was livid because, he showed me pictures of my pictures that were stolen. Now, my sister's car was taken from her. Her phone was taken from her. She was attempting to return things that were stolen from me because she said, yeah, you're right. And she was trying to get that back. And during this phase, they took her car. They took her ability to communicate and even complain. Because when she did complain, she and I would both tell Eric, the trustee, and say, hey, look, you guys need to treat us right. You're not doing us right. She needs her car back. She needs her phone back. And it just got really, really ugly. But the reason why was because her son did not want any of the stuff that was taken and stolen to be returned to me. And so he did take her keys and her phone, so she couldn't call and she couldn't complain. It's just insidiously wicked. And that too is probably why they're like, well, we're not gonna check it out. It's a natural death. It was no natural death. My sister was murdered. And then they knew that her son wanted to hurry up and cash in, so they worked that. Because when I got into an argument with the property management that day, and I told them if I turn up dead, I wanted all of them investigated on that day. I think it was, I went ahead and I popped up the videotape of my mom and put down that this senior abuse needed to be reopened. Because at that time, Stephen McDaniels was still alive and living in our property rent-free up in Descansel. And so after I popped that up, where my mom is literally saying, pretty much, if you listen to her, she's being used for her money. That's the last time she's able to also talk. Well, 5 days after I upload this video on Facebook, on YouTube, I uploaded it on YouTube before I ever put it on Facebook. 5 days after that, Mr. McDaniels dies. I don't think he died. I think they got rid of him. Then 17 days after that, my sister's murdered, but we're not told that McDaniel died for 17 days. That whole time, they probably looted everything they could of value, what was left, because these thieves are good. See, that man got Mom buying all kinds of stuff off the police auction. I mean, she literally, while she was alive, she had so many boxes coming to this house and that house up in the mountain. It was crazy. For the entire summer, she was like 20, 30 boxes a day. Every day post office delivered, he was delivering. So all that stuff, and she would say, oh, that's okay, when I die, Stephen's gonna give you these things, and he'll give it to. I said, Mom, no, that man's a thief, he's a con artist, he's not gonna give us nothing, and oh no, I trust him. No. So anyway, he didn't give us anything but a used bag of Depends. That was so sick. I honestly hope the man burns in hell, and all of the people in league with him, because this was definitely premeditated, and it was planned very smoothly. So then after he dies, and they don't tell us for 17 days, okay, then he dies on November 1st. We're told November 17th. And then on November 20th, exactly 3 days after his death, Trina dies. Not only is Trina a witness to all the wrongs that were done, all of the evils that were done, plots, even plots with the family, as well as her also saying that Eric should have never kept these people in charge of the trust. They were murderous people. But Trieste and Eric were always together, spying on me and Trina, and making life very hard, very hard. Well, you know what the word says, a house divided will not stand, and that's true. So the devil saw a way to get in here, and he did. And now my sister's dead. And so they did flip it around. And I get news on the 28th of December, suddenly, instead of the trust being divided between the daughters in a 3-part split, now, of course, Anthony takes his mother's portion, and Trieste is going to take her portion. My son is going to be in charge of my portion, while he takes 1/4 for himself. That's not the way the trust was ever set up to be done, but this is how sinister this is. All this going on, and they don't even give a damn that they aided in the murder of their own relative, my sister. And so anyway, I went to Chula Vista Police Department. I told them, I said, look, my life is on the line. I need help. I was threatened. And of course, Anthony did come in here and threaten me on December 28th. My life was threatened. I called the police. The audio should be there. If not, then that's suspicious too. I don't trust any of the police, honestly. I haven't seen any good faith police come through at all. I've only seen the corrupt ones, to be honest. So I go to them and I tell them what's up, and I said, hey, look, this has just been one giant, like, cluster blank. I didn't use that word, but that's what it is. I said it's a land grab. They're seizing opportunity. Of course, they've turned family against family, but I want all these people investigated. I said I want charges brought up. I want investigation done, murder charges, and I want you to check Brad Bickle's All Area Property Management and his crew. I want them investigated for their part in it. I want the trust attorney Stephen Bates Esquire. I want him investigated for his part in it. I actually heard him giving my son information, telling him to tell us that we pay for the autopsy ourselves. It's not to come out of the trust. And at that point, my mouth fell open because that was not the advice that the trust attorney was supposed to be giving my son, yet he didn't know that I heard this. So I'm listening to this. Now, this is the very day that Anthony goes, the 28th of December, and he sees this trust attorney. Now, this trust attorney refused to see us when my mother died. He refused to explain to us how the trust functioned, what were the safety protocols involved in the trust, how did it work in our benefit. What do we do if there's a problem? He refused to talk to us. He straight out refused to talk to us. But after Trina's murder, he calls in my son and he has him bring in Anthony Washington and he talks to him. I actually did speak to the man on the phone and I said, how is it that you were able to speak to him about the trust, but when my mother died, you refused to speak to any of us daughters about the trust? And he simply said, well, that's the way I do things. And I'm like, wow. So they've literally gotten away with murder, and they're setting this place up now because of the greed of the other family members. And because, again, there's people that have put their tabs on and want this land. This land that you see me right here. Right there, I think there's some videos I did where this glass building is. Folks were literally coming out of the side of that parking lot, watching me. They park here on the other side of my house, on the Delmar side, watch the house and walk all the way to that place. I was told it's a parole office. I know there's attorneys in there. I know they're connected with the courts in many ways. And, there was a lot of signals that were going back and forth between that white building and 755 Delmar and the people that were living in this here house, two-story house. They would put little balloons up in their windows. They'd send these things. So now this helicopter has been coming around for at least an hour, up over, and again, there's just, what do? The police aren't going to investigate themselves. My sister's autopsy was botched. They said it took too long and her body rotted. Who does this? This intentionally was done so that they could cover up the truth that my sister was murdered. And I don't know who this Phoebe social worker was that was working with her where she lived, but she needs to be brought up on murder charges as well, because I do believe she's involved. Because when I went to go see my sister's body, we missed her by supposedly a few minutes, like 20, 30 minutes, and the police. They hot-tailed their asses up on out of there because they probably realized that I was going to call them on that. I was like, this is not a natural position for a body to be found dead in. So how can you declare it natural? Cobalt lips are not a natural condition of a natural death. So they left, okay? And they left another woman there to watch while, of course, Anthony was sitting over his mother's body. And so, the interesting thing was when when we were driving there, big old gust of wind went right past us. It was supernatural. It was spiritual. And of course, on the 3rd of December, when she actually had her services, Enoch said he also heard a lot of wind blowing against the wall of the house. He asked if I heard it. I said, son, no, I was not able to hear that. He said, Mom, you should have heard it was that loud. So I hope that the FBI or some organization will investigate and bring the truth out about my sister's murder and about the plot that was put in place to steal this property by Brad Bickles, all area property manager, by attorney Stephen Bates Esquire, by Eric Troy Jackson, and okay, by Anthony Samuel Washington too, who just couldn't help but take over his mother's monetary assets even at the point of her murder. I complained too many times. I said, Eric, Anthony's not giving her food. He won't let her have her car. She doesn't have a phone. She can't call to complain. And anytime I told Eric, he told the enemy. When I told him problems here at the house, he told the property manager. We had so much chaos coming down on us. But my son didn't care because he didn't live here. And then he tried to say, well, what are you doing? And we haven't done anything. And he knew this. And he knew this also. He knows that other people in our family who have lived here were persecuted by the neighbors. That included he himself, my own son, Eric, the trustee of this land, who was supposed to protect us, but literally served us up on a platter to be murdered because he cares about nothing but the money. And I will tell you this, I am not slandering the boy. He stole every dime from the sale of my house of Naples. He didn't give a penny to his brothers or his sister, but he sure did buy himself a brand new car, pay off his college fund, and then take all his friends on a vacation to Disneyland, went to concerts, games, and everything, while we were sitting here struggling in utter poverty. That's Eric Troy. So anyway, this is the truth. And he needs to also be investigated because due to his wicked and gross negligence, my sister is no longer here. And every time I warned him and she warned him, he only told the property managers to put us in more danger because nobody messes with Brad Bickles. We were told that by his previous tenant that was put in here. So, and there was a witness to that as well, statement. So my son threw us under the bus, just like my nephew threw his own mother under the bus. And we were trying to cry out for help, but who do you cry to when you're an orphan? Huh? Your dad's gone, your mother's been murdered, and this whole insidious setup was the cause and effect of your mother getting together with a land prospecting supremacist. And that's exactly what she did. And he had connections with the police department. His son, police officer involved in a Black Lives Matter murder in 2016 in, I believe it was in El Cajon, or with La Mesa. And my mom was still alive at that time talking about that. Brad Bickles, ex-officer in charge of all area property management. His father, very, very prestigious man here, a lot of clout, and the people that married into their family. These people are wicked. That's all I can say. They're straight up wicked. And they've signed a pact with Satan, because if that's the way they make their money, is by abusing old women, taking advantage of them, women, widows, and orphans. These people work for Satan. That's all it is to it. That's all it is to it. Because they're doing everything the Bible says not to do. And that's all I got to say about that. So anyway, this is just my little record that I needed to put down because, again, Eh, I get tired of this, but what can you do? You really, you really can't prove anything. But yeah, the helicopters on the drones, man, it's so old. I can go to the store, they're at the store. Well, wherever I go, they pop up. Before they had them following me, they had various neighbors doing it. It's just evil. It's just evil. I just pray every day that, that they get what's coming to them. I really do. I really do. These aren't people. These are wolves in sheep's clothing, sinister, imp infested imposters. They work very well. They probably could get jobs with the stage acting guild very well because they're very good at what they do. They stage everything. Everything. Anyway. And the other thing I've been begging my son for is to put and restore my maiden name. I have been divorced for well over 20 years, since 2000, and they lied and said, well, if you keep the name, it'll be easier on your children. That's a lie. Kept the name, my children were still harassed. My children were still kidnapped by the Chula Vista PD and taken into Child Protective Services custody, and they did not deserve it because they weren't abused. But again, fraudulent, lying people will do anything, and the first one was that badge-wearing officers. They came in, lied on their paperwork, and after the CPS field worker said no, he wouldn't take my children, um, well, the officer said, well, I'll take them myself. And then he turned them over to a lady named Katie Maldonado. She had never, ever done this before. She just graduated from college. She was newly married, had no kids, had a picture of a police officer on her desk facing me, and she totally traumatized my children and covered up for the police. That's right. There was a 17-year-old CPS caseworker veteran for CPS who lost his job subsequently after he admitted, he said, Mrs. Jackson, I'm so sorry. Miss Jackson, I'm so sorry. That's right, I'm divorced. I'm so sorry, but, CPS had no reason, rhyme, or right to take your children away, and it's wrong. And he was fired. He lost his job. He lost all the 17 years invested in his job, and I've always wanted to see him and thank him. I know he wasn't able to help us, but by the mere fact that he stood up for us, knowing that we were innocent and lost his job, I just hope and pray that that man's family is okay. And it was a white man. It was a white, I'm not racist at all, but I'm telling you the color of his skin because that's, not the necessary color of his pigment. But he was a Caucasian man, and he was a nice man. And that goes to show there are good people, but Chula Vista is predominantly filled with racist and bad people. And a lot of them work in the system, they're working in the schools, and they're working in the police department. So unless you look like them and fit into their idea of what's acceptable, they do things like they're doing here to me. They persecute, they pop up. I mean, we had people run around here like lowriders bumping up and down. You'd think that they was a, what is it called when the cows and the wagon train circled around so that they couldn't get attacked, by the circling, angry indigenous folks. But in this case, the indigenous folks were gangbangers of the Latin persuasion, and they called them in. And this happened right after, the day after dealing with Brad Bickle's all-area property management. I actually saw little signals being gone back and forth in the yard, and And the very next day, when we go out to do our job, suddenly everybody is showing up, driving, honking, walking their pit bulls, spitting at us, and, it's just, we had no cameras. I had no proof. I asked my son, I said, son, you need to put some cameras on the house. You really do, because, it will catch this. I had strangers that were walking right up to my front door and peeping in my house. One guy actually came the 5th of July. The 5th of July, I remember it distinctively because I was out in my backyard talking to Enoch saying, look at the beautiful fireworks. And I overheard this guy in my neighbor's yard talking to him, and they were asking about us. And I was like, wow, Enoch, are you listening? He's like, The next day, this man shows up in my front yard, at my front door, talking about, we want to find out what you're all about. But before he even did that, he didn't ring the doorbell. He just got caught. He had a paper pretending like he was trying to recruit for a church. And he comes up to my door and he's peeping in the house and he's sniffing. You could hear him. You could hear him snorting the air real deep. He's a Caucasian man, lives right down the street here from me on Delmar. And has a little kid that rolls up and down on his little trike thing. And I was like, wow, this is pretty bold. I mean, the audacity to come up to me after I've been in this neighborhood, my father had this house for over 40 years, and say, we want to know who you are. Well, gee, you've lived in this neighborhood with me and my family on this corridor for 40 years. There was ample time to get to know who I was. The other problem that we had, too, is we had a homeless man we took in. His name was Peter Curtis. He also got $15,000 on the death when my mom died. How nice. She didn't even have the money to pay it, but we had to come up out of that. Now, this man was living here rent-free. He was homeless. He needed a place. Trina had a little helping heart, my sister, who's dead now. She said, come on in, Mom. Can he take him in? He's being kicked out of his home. He looked like a tweaker. So anyway, he comes, he moves in the house. People started treating him like he's the owner of the house. I was asking him because, things would happen with one of the neighbors. Every time he would upgrade something or do something, he would park his boat on the side of the house or whatever he needed to do. But, he would ask permission. He would ask Peter. Once Peter disappeared, he stopped asking. It's very rude. He just has the people just park right there on the side of my yard, up underneath our windows, and they're hauling their little talc powder, whatever that was being done, all over the yard. I actually took a picture of the yard, but there was no courtesy. Now, I would have said, yeah, sure, go ahead by all means. But I'm just saying this to say that this is how this neighborhood is. Unless I was the right color, right? Now, this man next door, he's got, a biracial family that he's also granddaddy of. But unless I was the right color, I didn't have the right for him to even ask and say, hey, is it okay? No, it's just white privilege. He just did it, among other things, too, in the past. So there's been things, and I've been, recording from time to time. During the time I lost my last phone, my son came in and said, well, I can get you another phone because your phone was hacked. He deliberately caused the loss of my valuable information. And now, again, he's trying to do it again. I keep telling him I need a memory card so I can fix this phone, because this phone has already been hacked. It's pretty much useless. But until I can safely store some of the stuff, I'm stuck with this hacked phone. So I'm going to end this right here. We're at 44 minutes, 39 seconds. That's enough, I guess. I'm just upset because who does this? These people have no conscience and they have no souls. and what they do is utterly wicked. Who does this?